backdrop intentionally, because that's why we're here today. We're here as really a unified body, passionate about the waterfront of the city of St. Petersburg. And we've been talking about the situations with the pier, the safety issues, for now going on 10 years. I was on the city council back in 2003 when we received our first report as to the condition of, at that time, an 80-year-old structure. We've had numerous discussions with this, and the process began in 2009 with the Pier Vision and Task Force, and we can quote the figures, you all know them: 64 meetings, the public input, the charrettes, the task force, the international design, the jury selection, and all of these opportunities for public input. And at the end of the day, the people have said, so what? And I hear that, and I get that. But as we stand here today in June, people are engaged. People have an opinion. They're passionate. They either support something or are against something, but it's divisive. But now everybody feels like they have a voice. They've exercised their right to public forums and debates and open forums, and people are engaged. And I don't want to lose that momentum. So we have a very important vote on August 27th. The people have earned their right to vote. And I will say this for the record, as I've said many times. I have supported from day one the people's right to vote on this very important issue. Even back in August of 2012, I supported the people's right to vote and proposed referendum items on to the City Council for placement on the ballot, and those questions were rejected by the City Council. The second effort was done right, and it was done, the Stop the Lens group and through the Concerned Citizens. They hired great legal counsel. They formed a question, and they did the process according to the city charter. They did it right, and they earned this placement on the ballot. So what happens on August 28th? That's why we're here today. And that's why I've assembled a group that understands a couple of things. Yes, people are passionate. This issue has been divisive. We all recognize that. But the common thread that goes through everyone up here is that they love the city of St. Pete, they're passionate about the waterfront, and having no pier is not an option. We will have a pier and recognize this over 100-year tradition of having a pier in the city of St. Petersburg. We will have a pier. So on August 28th, this group, and I'll introduce those that are here with me today, and I want to say thank you to all of them. But this group, on August 28th, will stand on the steps of City Hall and raise a glass of something non-alcoholic, and we will toast the lens, if that's the vote. And we agree that we will work together to build this new iconic structure in the city of St. Petersburg, if that is what the people decide on August 27th. If the people decide to stop the lens and to cancel the contract with Michael Molson, we will stand on the steps of City Hall and raise a glass and toast the fact that we will have a pier, and this group has been commissioned to recommend to me, this is a mayor's task force, subject to sunshine and public records request and all meetings open to the public, but their mission is to present to me a process for the design and selection of the new St. Petersburg Pier. It's a process that may involve the waterfront master plan. It will be inclusive. And again, we have all sides and opinions represented here, including the marine sciences. But their mission for July and August is to come up with an all-inclusive process, again, for the design and selection of the new St. Petersburg Pier. So on August 28th, we haven't lost a step. We have the momentum, we have the passion, we have the opinions, the drive, and I'll have a process that I can recommend to the City Council as we go forward. So I don't want to lose this momentum. I don't want to lose this time. I don't want to have wasted time. It's too important. Having nothing out there for 3 or 4 years while we're trying as a city to figure out what to do with our beautiful waterfront, that's not an option. So they're going to come up with this plan, and I'm excited about this. You know, when I think about the divisive nature of what this has become, I think back to when I was in college and I wasn't a part of the process, but Tropicana Field, the people wanted their right to vote, and they didn't get that, and we built it. In this situation, we can make a choice. The people have a right to vote, and we're not going to build anything until they exercise that right to vote. There's a big difference in the two, but the divisiveness is still there. I'd like to introduce the people that are here. Bud Risser has been really the face, the driving force behind the Concerned Citizens. Fred Whaley is the chairman of Concerned Citizens. Dr. Bill Hogarth recently retired as the chancellor of USF St. Pete, but he comes as a member of the city's ocean team, former dean of marine sciences of USF, and he heads FIO, which is the conglomerate of educational institutions overseeing the Gulf of Mexico and the events post-BP. We have Ed Montanari, who was a co-chair of the Pier, the Blue Ribbon Pier Task Force. We have David Punzak, who is the chairman of the St. Petersburg Area Chamber of Commerce. We have Shirley O'Sullivan, who has been an outspoken proponent of the lens. Other members, we will have Rob Kapusta, who's president of the Downtown Partnership, Susan Jessic, who is a St. Petersburg resident and authority with Urban Land Institute. Bob Scheruti has agreed to serve. He represents a lot of businesses along Beach Drive. He was also a member of the Pier Visioning Task Force. James Jackson Jr., that's a name that you may not recognize unless you do a lot of business in Tampa. He is the city architect for the city of Tampa. He happens to live here in the city of St. Petersburg and has agreed to serve. Phil Graham is a well-known landscape architect in the community. I will reach out to a couple other members of the community. I'd like to get the dean of the USF College of Marine Sciences, and I will ask a representative from Kona, Council of Neighborhood Associations, to serve as well. The facilitator, this is going to have very little staff support. Staff will be available to answer any questions that this group may have, but I even have an outside facilitator that will facilitate the group. Raleigh Green, long-standing attorney here in the city of St. Petersburg, and he is the president of the St. Petersburg Bar Association. So again, we have, I think, a lot of stakeholders and interest here. Time is of the essence, folks, and we will have a pier, and we're not going to lose even 2 months without having a process and a plan in place to go forward. So at this time, I'd like to avail any member of the team that's up here, including myself, to answer any questions that you might have.
Mayor, is any council members going to be on this committee?
No.
How come?
I think council's done enough.
In what respect have they done enough?
You know, for over a year I've asked council to put things on the ballot. And I think that part of the people's angst is that they didn't get a chance to cast a ballot. This isn't about, I mean, and I even noticed this Thursday, or when we had these discussions about the pier, when it was unanimous to put this on the ballot for August 27th. This isn't about the pier anymore. It's not about the lens anymore. It's about the people's right to go to the ballot box and cast a vote. And so I've always supported that. So they've done their job. It's a referendum question that is on the ballot, and we're going to do ours.
Will you get started before the 28th?
Oh yeah, I want to report I want a proposed process. Again, process for design and selection. I would like to have that process on my desk, so on the 28th, we have a clear roadmap of where we're going. Time is of the essence on this.
I have a question, and I think it's for Mr. Ponzak and for Mr. Whaley or Risser. You represent an organization that said it's going to raise funds to mount some sort of campaign, pro-lands, pre-referendum. You represent an organization, we pretty well know what you're about, pre-referendum campaign-wise. So how's that work with you guys in the same room?
Let me
No.
start. Let me
Okay.
start because you need to know what my instructions were. I haven't asked anybody to stand down on their campaigns. So my whole agreement with this group, do what you gotta do. Run your campaigns, raise money. The only thing I ask of them is to be factual. Stick with the facts. No rhetoric, no crap. Just stick with the facts. But run your campaign. So that's, and then I'll let them answer accordingly. Okay?
But you want to start off?
I'll defer, Fred.
We've always said that our major mission is the waterfront and its future going forward. So we thought the lens was not correct, and we found 20-some thousand petitioners who agreed with us, and so we've given the people the right to vote. We appreciate that. But we certainly want to be part of the waterfront going forward, and we want to be part of the waterfront going forward no matter how that election comes out. So we welcome the opportunity to participate and try to unite the city. We think that St. Petersburg has one of the most wonderful waterfronts in the United States today. So with that in mind, we just want to continue to support it, and we think this process should help.
Your group has also consistently said you should wait, city should wait for a waterfront master plan and involve the development of the Pier project with the master plan.
Right, I think that's a very good point. And the thing that the mayor has told us that, you know, our process is open for us to advise how that process might happen, so that certainly could, including either running parallel or completing the master plan before we move forward on the pier. So that's not been excluded.
Mr. Ponzak.
And from our standpoint, you know, there's been about a 4 or 5 year process here to get to where we are today. And we're respectful of that process, but remember, the Chamber of Commerce is after commerce. What we want is commerce, and what we don't want is what happened in 1967, which is when the old pier came down and then nothing was there for 4 or 5 years. So we've been in favor of that. As you know, last week we did a letter to the mayor and city council recommending that they terminate the contract. In the interim, to answer your question, we plan to educate folks, let them make their own minds up. We think this is a great idea that the mayor's come up with here to put the two groups together. We're looking forward to working with this group collaboratively and coming up with something so that if the pier is approved or the lens is approved, we move forward on that basis. If it isn't, that's fine. There'll be a process in place. We haven't lost 2 months. We are ready to go on August 28th to make that happen.
Just how much attention, though, will be paid to Part A, is figure out how to make the best lens possible. Part B is, if it does, if it fails at the ballot box, then we go to Plan B. How much effort will really be spent on Part A?
This is all new, and we talked to the mayor for the first time this morning. As I understand the charge of the task force, it really isn't about Part A. It's not about the lens. This is about what happens if the lens is not approved in the referendum. And Mayor, you might want to speak.
Yeah, I mean, Part A might be very brief. Part A might just be this unifying handshake that, you know what, if we built the lens, we're going to do it together. Because wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to fight with the Army Corps or the county's navigation board or DEP, but if we came in with a unifying force? Again, I don't mind citizens making sure we do it right. And I'm happy to have the input. I mean, I've learned so much about, you know, magnesium contents of aluminum, and I shouldn't have to know that, but I've learned it. So I'm all about that as far as the process. But, you know, Part A might just be, you know what, we're not going to fight anymore. We're going to stand together and we're going to figure this out and we're going to build this thing called the lens. Part B is a lot bigger, and that's going to require the most time.
And for Part B, a question for Mr. Montanari, the survivor of the process. As you look at this and say, okay, you got to come up with another process, can you kind of tick off not organizationally, but just to-do list wise, what this task force is going to do to develop a process? process?
Well, I think first we need to bring everybody up to the same level of education. As the mayor pointed out, we have gone through a 4.5-year process. And some people are new to the process, so we have to start off with education. And we have to go through and talk about, some of the basic things. Zoning, environmental, marketing, what works, what doesn't. And there's a lot of information out there. I want to sit down and talk with the Mr. Whaley, and I think it's very important that we sit down at the same table and we go through the facts and we try to work out a solution to this problem that our city's facing. I think the mayor is right on the money. I mean, we all love our city. We love our waterfront. It's the prime real estate that makes St. Petersburg St. Petersburg. And the pier is the attractor, and it needs to be done right. And I'm looking forward to working with everybody here and getting something done.
Last go around, you had the benefit of staff support, you had the benefit of consultants. The cost of more than $10. You don't have that this time. Is that a problem?
No, I don't see it as a problem. A lot of that work has already been done. Now we have to just bring everybody up to speed. I don't see needing to go and have more studies done at this point in time. If we get there and we need some help, we'll go to the mayor and we'll ask him when we get to a problem that we may need funding for.
And the education process is going to be big, and that might take the first couple of meetings, because I don't want to reinvent the Pier Vision Task Force. I mean, they are the ones that went through a lot of the processes, but I mean, the alphabet soup that's out there is incredible. You've got DEP, you've got Army Corps, you've got FAA, you've got FEMA, you've got all these government agencies that either have to sign off or check. There are some real constraints. Now, the one constraint that I was very clear with the group when I met with them is it's got to be done within budget. Not a penny more than the $50 million prescribed, less what we've already spent, plus whatever we can glean from that information regarding soil samples, engineering, caisson testings, and things like that. So this thing has to stay within budget. But the education process on getting everybody at the same level with the same facts, I think has to occur. And if they want staff reports, I will avail my staff to this group as they desire, as they control, as they see fit. I'm not putting constraints on the visionary process of this group, but we will accommodate whatever needs they have.
Mayor, yesterday the president gave a pretty important speech on climate change. If the city is to go back to the drawing board, how much emphasis will you, as the mayor, place on making sure that that is possibility for storm surge, sea level rise, all that are taken into consideration?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've already raised, as far as FEMA rules and things like that, we've already accommodated proposed sea level rise, and that's why all of the elevations, even of the new pier as designed, are 6 feet above, I think, the existing platform. And FEMA's requirements make it interesting, and I don't want to get into this, but even if the idea were somehow doing something with the inverted pyramid, it's my understanding that because of FEMA, sea level rise, and being so far above mean sea, your entrance actually becomes the second floor instead of the first because everything has to be elevated. What is there now is lower than what would be prescribed. But there are all sorts of, I mean, the county's already told us you're not going to build anything bigger than what's out there. We're going to require, shading and all these other elements to be smaller. So, yeah, the education process and the environmental impacts are going to be an important concern.
Mayor, you've acknowledged all the hurdles you got to cross, permits, different agencies. How is this group going to boil everything down that's been accomplished in 4.5 years into 2 months by meeting for 1 or 2 hours?
Again, I'm not asking them to design anything. They can certainly give us things to look at, things to consider in the process of design and selection. I'm asking them to come up with a process, but they're not going to design it.
When's your first meeting?
It'll be after the 4th. I'll survey, and it is summertime, and they've all agreed not to go on vacation. So
How often will you meet?
it's up to them.
Got a question for Dr. Hobart. You represent a community that, I spoke to several of them, they spoke to me also, that really felt the Lens missed the boat in capturing the expertise that those various institutions in the marine science community have to offer. Describe that, what you think that community could provide to a new Pier.
Well, that's the real reason I'm here, because I think I talked to the same group, and we have that expertise within FO and College of Marine Science with them. And I think their views need to be expressed to this committee and as we go through it. So that's why I'm here, because I think we believe St. Petersburg is extremely valuable from a scientific standpoint. We have both scientists in Southeast and St. Petersburg. We'd like to see the science activity continue even on the waterfront. So we'd like to make sure that we design it properly. Some of the earlier designs about underwater things and things like that. Just we're realistic for the Florida coast we have here with the shallow water and things like that. So we believe that we can have an input into help design this and give some information will help move forward. And, yeah, there's a lot of opinions. We have the same opinions within the scientific community over there from oceanographers and even. Yeah, I was brought in earlier, the ex-mayor, Mayor Baker and I talked earlier when I first got here about could you repair what was there? You know, could you go in and dissection and section and try to do that seemed to be very costly and really didn't get what needed to be done. So, but I've been on the sideline since listening to what's going on, and I'm anxious to get involved in this and see if we can do that. But, so we need the structure, in my opinion, and we need to make sure that it represents the city of St. Petersburg. And there's a lot of things in the city of St. Petersburg that can be done in a Pier type structure. I think we'll bring a lot of people to the waterfront and really set St. Petersburg aside as what it really is.
What do you think